of time, why don't we go ahead and get started and hopefully, others will join. And if not, we'll have an intimate little gathering and that's just fine. Welcome. So this is a webinar about 2026 LinkedIn and how nonprofits can make the most of it. So if hopefully you're in the right place, but if not, maybe you'll learn something new. Okay, Amanda, you can get to the next slide. So we are all on Zoom incessantly, so I know you could probably say this in your sleep, but I think everyone is on mute, just maybe double check, but we will have Q&A later, but if you could just stay on mute for the moment, that would be fantastic. Definitely take advantage of the chat. We want to hear from you, and we will, like I said, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So we definitely want to hear from you throughout, and if you have comments you want to make, feel free. And as you'll notice, it is being recorded. We're going to share the link afterwards, but just to know that that is happening. And so if there's anything you say that you don't want included in the recording, just let us know. But I don't think it's that kind of recording. And we can move to the next slide, Amanda. So we have, I think, an exciting lineup because three of my favorite people, but two of my favorite people who I don't work with every day are on the call. One is Nadia Afrin, who is lead strategic communications, media relations, and stakeholder engagement at the Sabin Vaccine Institute. But I met Nadia when she was the director of communications. I hope that was the right title at PSI. She has a long and storied career in global health and communications. So, and is just one of the smartest and kindest people I know. And then also Madeline Morris from EggPath. Madeline leads social media at EggPath, everything from short form video production and digital content creation to storytelling. And I've just come to really respect Madeline's viewpoint and go to her often for counsel. So she's going to, I think, provide some really salient insights on LinkedIn. If you're not familiar, I do know many of, not all of you. If you're not familiar with Glassroth Creative Strategies, we are a women-owned and operated boutique communication strategy firm. We work almost exclusively with mission-driven nonprofits. I founded this organization about 11 and a half years ago. Amanda is my right arm, my right brain, possibly my whole brain. But we have worked together for several years. And so with that, and she is our resident LinkedIn guru. So I will, with that, turn it over to you, Amanda. Oh, wait, oops, sorry, I forgot. Quickly, just to walk everyone through the agenda, welcome and introductions we just did. Amanda's going to walk you through the 2026 LinkedIn environment, sort of what the current state of play is. Nadia is going to talk about an institutional thought leadership program focused on LinkedIn. She walked me through this a couple weeks ago, and I was just really impressed. And there's a lot that we can all learn from. Madeline's going to talk about using the platform to support organizational missions. I know, we are all probably in the nonprofit space, so this is really important. I will come back again to talk a little bit about how you can build a sustainable program and what we're doing for some of our clients to do that. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. So definitely want to hear any questions or comments that you may have or experiences you want to share about using LinkedIn. And with that, I really will turn it over to my colleague, Amanda.
Great. Thank you, Juliet. And thanks again to everybody who's joining us. And let's see. So to really lay the foundation for today's conversation, I wanted to start with a little bit of context. So we all know that the LinkedIn of today is certainly not the LinkedIn of 3 years ago. And the question really that we want to answer first is, how did we get here? Beginning in 2023, and of course, continuing into 2024, activity on X, formerly known as Twitter, definitely saw a big decrease. The platform lost about 33 million users. And both the content and the conversations that were then happening on X fundamentally changed as a result of that. This left a lot of organizations, probably some of you all, I know us and several of our clients, kind of looking around for new places to build the online community, and reach our audience in the same way or a similar way as we were formerly on Twitter. I'm sure we all remember this. It led to increased use of platforms like Mastodon and Substack, as well as the emergence of new places like Blue Sky and Threads. And many users tried out all or some of those platforms, but nothing really saw quite as much growth as LinkedIn at this time. People were and still are craving not just authenticity, but credibility. They want to see content that they could trust, and they really found that content reliably on LinkedIn. And specifically for nonprofits, starting in 2025, especially, the instability of the environment really led to continued growth in LinkedIn use and engagement. So as funding cuts led to layoffs and closures, of course, nonprofit professionals individually really flocked to LinkedIn as a platform to search for jobs, to network. But at the same time, organizations found those increased opportunities to continue building connections within their industries, and also to use LinkedIn to start connecting more and more with donors as well as media professionals. Of course, as all this was happening, artificial intelligence was also on the rise. And in particular, the use of generative AI in content creation rose quickly and also had a bit of a backlash from users. So we've really seen what's become known as AI slop become less and less popular among users, and we've seen like an increased and growing call for, again, authenticity and credibility, especially on LinkedIn, which has always been known for a place that professionals and job seekers and organizations can go to find content and people that they can trust. So as of 2026, what we're seeing is that LinkedIn has made a lot of updates to the platform and to its algorithm. And it's really today prioritizing individual users and quality through thought leadership, which is a big piece of what we're going to dig into today. So as of 2026, there are really four major differences on LinkedIn that nonprofits really need to be aware of when building their strategy. First, people tend to outperform institutions. The algorithm has really shifted in response to user engagement, noticing that users tend to prefer posts from individuals over those from institutions. Second, conversation tends to outperform promotion. So high value engagement is what the platform is looking for and what it wants to reward. So for nonprofits, the strategies have to include not just a plan to promote the organization, but a plan to start conversations that actually matter within your circle and within your industry. Third, human-made content. Again, it's more powerful than ever. We've seen this over and over, but when things really start to look the same, right? When content starts to look the same, no matter who it's coming from, what's really going to stand out and be successful is that unique, credible, reliable content coming from brands that are using human creativity and human strategy to put out information that really is going to matter to people and to people in their industries. And finally, the AI generated slop is kind of a non-starter at this point. You will get called out if you post it, especially reliably. And that doesn't mean that AI doesn't have a place or a use in social media strategy. That doesn't mean that at all, right? Plenty of organizations have found success using this new technology in ways that aren't content creation or content generation, right? Using it a little more in the background for things like social listening and metric analysis can be another option, but we'll touch on that as well. And finally, just a quick overview, quick snippet of what we're seeing from a lot of nonprofits and how they're really using LinkedIn this year. One, it's always awareness and advocacy, right? LinkedIn targeted advertising is a top use. The newsletters Community building, even influencer engagement on LinkedIn has really grown among nonprofits and businesses alike. Uh, to building credibility and reputation, LinkedIn really is the place for this online right now. When it comes to posting thought leadership through articles, um, building executive visibility is huge. Lots of industry networking, media relations, and really engaging with the board of directors on LinkedIn. And finally, in the nonprofit world, fundraising and membership, we're using all of the above, right? All of those tactics are really feeding into building the organizations and generating like a more constant stream of members, funding, networking, building our communities. So I will hand it over to Nadia, who is going to dig into this a little bit deeper.
Thank you for that, Amanda. So I'm Nadia Afreen. I'm the VP of Communications at Sabin Vaccine Institute. It's a global health organization that on one hand develops vaccines, but also works on advancing vaccination. I wanted to build off of the trends that Amanda was just speaking about and 5 shifts we made on LinkedIn within our organization and dig into the fifth point a little bit more. So like many other nonprofits, we kind of leaned in very heavily on LinkedIn because it's a high trust platform and a lot of our relevant audience already resides there. So go where the fish are. So one of the 5 main things that we did on LinkedIn over the last year, and I say last year because this month is my first anniversary at Sabin, so I'm speaking to what we literally did in the last year. So the first thing that we did was really try to sharpen our storytelling. So Amanda was talking about AI slop, about an estimated 30 to 50% of content on LinkedIn can be, kind of put in that bucket. So authentic storytelling is really important in the moment, and we were really trying to steer clear of the generic low value kind of content and invest more time and energy in more substantive high value content. And by that I mean like expert perspectives, explainer, data explained. Simply those kinds of content, and also authentic storytelling, like human storytelling as well. The second thing that we did was consistently signaling our expertise. So we came together as a group and agreed on the 5 or 6 themes or topics that we wanted to be known for, and we consistently posted around those topics. And this is great for boosting your AI discoverability as well. So, and as we were posting, referencing the conferences or events we are at, referencing the research that we are citing, mentioning and tagging other experts, other or credible organizations, etc. Those are all things that help to signal expertise. Like a lot of other organizations, another thing that we did was more videos. We posted about 60% more videos the first quarter of this year compared to last year, the same time last year. And we see this across organizations. A few years ago, we were all posting higher production quality, but fewer videos. Now we are doing more DIY style videos, shorter videos, but they are more timely, more frequent, more in the moment. And again, as we're doing videos, there are all kinds of things that we're doing, event reflections, scientist, expert explainers, human-centered storytelling again, and videos do really well on our platform. Number 4, we decided to make a big shift. We moved away from email newsletters because we were finding that initially they were growing very slowly. And with the disruption that we had in global health and a lot of our colleagues and partners kind of switching roles and organizations, we were getting a lot of bounce backs. So we decided to move to LinkedIn newsletter, but it wasn't just a straightforward shift. We had to really deliberately think about how we switch up our newsletter. So we are doing shorter but more frequent newsletters. And whereas our email newsletters kind of focused on institutional or organizational updates, Now our LinkedIn newsletters are more about industry insights kind of content. And then the fifth thing is what I wanted to dig into deeper, which is building in the LinkedIn thought leadership within the organization. And as Amanda was mentioning, LinkedIn is really prioritizing individual voices over corporate. So this is something that we felt was really needed in the moment. So we are adopting a hub and spoke model. So Saban Corporate Channel is the hub, if you will, which kind of anchors us, gives us that anchor of credibility, and our colleagues are the spokes, kind of going into the communities, humanizing the brand. There are storytellers, and hopefully expanding our reach through this. And I would argue that this is not just about elevating our own profile or our organizational profile. This is something that is really needed in the moment. And that's because we see such a big shift in traditional media as well. A lot of the media, it's either consolidating, going behind paywall, and especially with younger demographics, what we're seeing is people are coming to social media as the first place to gather information, news, updates. And this is where we need our global health experts, our development professionals, our scientists, our researchers to be that source of credible information. So I would even say like this is an obligation for the experts among us. And if I've convinced you to be more active on LinkedIn and go from a lurker to a thought leader, I wanted to go through a couple of steps. Like if you are a busy professional, but you want to be more active on LinkedIn, what are some steps that you can take? So out of the LinkedIn audience, it's not surprising that we find about 90% of the LinkedIn audience can be put in the lurker bucket, as in we come here to gather information, but they're not necessarily interacting or posting. Another 9% are a little bit more active. They might be commenting, they might be engaging with content, liking, sharing, but it's really about 1% of the LinkedIn audience that can be called thought leaders, as in they're posting original content or driving conversation. So how can you set yourself up for success? The first step that you can take is take a moment to think about who you want to be on LinkedIn. What is your niche? What is your expertise? You don't necessarily need to be all over the map. So I'm sharing with you an example of like two individuals with two different profiles within an organization like Sabin. One person might be an R&D leader, one person an immunization specialist. What might it look like from their perspective? So think about what is your expertise? What do you have to share? Who are you trying to reach with what message? What kind of tone or personality do you want to cultivate on LinkedIn, and be consistent over time? Also, it doesn't have to be very detailed, but look at your LinkedIn profile not just as a resume, but really as a landing page. So have at least the basic level of information, the places where you've worked, a good photo. Make sure that your LinkedIn profile is verified. It's a very simple process. Have a good photo that is not very obviously AI generated. So all of those things help to build trust. And then also add the kind of people the audiences that you're trying to reach. There's a cheat code for that. If initially you don't have the network that you're trying to build, you can also do LinkedIn ads and boost your posts, etc. But we'll go into that a little bit later. But try and add people from the organizations that you're trying to reach. And then secondly, if you only have about 15 minutes a week to engage on LinkedIn, how can you most effectively use that time? I would say use 10 minutes of that time to post something on LinkedIn. When you have more time, you can post something original. It can be a long form article, blog-like, or a deeper reflection. But if you don't have time for that most weeks, share an interesting article that you have read, share something interesting you heard at an event or an insight a colleague said, share a post from your corporate channel. So there's a bunch of things that you can do that are fairly low lift. And then spend 5 minutes interacting with people in your network. If someone's commenting on one of your posts, if you see something else that's interesting. And with comments, try and go beyond just the basics, as in a nice job or congratulations. If you longer comments, especially ones that are over 15 words, tend to help your LinkedIn algorithm. So more insightful comments are usually seen more favorable within LinkedIn. And then the third thing is every 3 to 6 months, measure your results, see how you're doing. So the LinkedIn dashboard actually gives you some amazing insights because it tells you the reach of your posts, what are your top posts, people from what organizations are reading your posts, or what regions are reading your posts. So you can really get a lot of really good insight. And then the other thing that is lesser known, I'm sharing the link for the social selling index. And that it's not just a vanity index, it actually gives you some really good information about your own reach within LinkedIn. And I'm bravely sharing my very dismal score uh, for the social selling index, which puts me on tier 2, which means that I have a strong reach within my first degree network. But if I really want to go beyond my immediate network and reach my second and third degree connections, that's when I really need to invest more time and energy. And the social selling index also tells you which buckets you need to work more on. So those are two things that you can do. And what I wanted to emphasize is, so this is what individuals can do, but institutionally, Sabin really worked on finding ways to support individuals to be LinkedIn thought leaders. So at the senior leadership level, the executive team really modeled this behavior. It was included in our performance metrics thought leadership. The comms team helped organize training events, particularly before conferences and events. We gave people video training. We occasionally nudge colleagues to share one thing or the other. We do occasionally LinkedIn ads to boost content as well. So there's a whole support network around it, which cannot be underestimated. But one very hopeful thing that we saw just within our first quarter of doing this is our top 3 leaders that we were tracking, their reach, their audience their network was far smaller than, as expected, the Save in corporate channel. But those 3 leaders together, their reach was about half that of the corporate channel, although their network was far, far smaller. Plus, we weren't posting very frequently. It was only about 3 to 4 posts a month. So even with very few posts like that, we were really starting to see those results. So that gives me a lot of hope that this is the kind of right path to follow. But I'd love to hear your insights, and please post your questions on chat. Over to you, Amanda.
Well, I just wanted to chime in defense of your social index, Nadia. It's always the cobbler's children, right? Because you are out there trying to get everybody else's social index higher as well as Sabin's index higher. So it's totally fair that maybe yours isn't quite there yet, but I consider you a thought leader. I think now we're just going to turn it over to Madeline from EggPath to talk about what she's doing for her organization on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much, Juliet. If we can go to the next slide. So I am Madeline, and I am from EggPath, which you may know us, you may not. We are the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. We've been around for a hot minute, and we are an international global health organization So we work in a lot of different areas, and maybe like your nonprofit, that means you're working across multiple languages, multiple time zones, multiple competing interest areas. And your job as a communications leader is to bring all of that mess together into a cohesive story. So I understand your pain. I understand the challenge. And I'm going to kind of talk about how we do that at EggPath and share some tips and tricks for what you could hopefully use at your nonprofit. So, who we are on LinkedIn. We've been on LinkedIn for a while, and while I do miss and really miss the days when you could just post a carousel and immediately get 10,000 views, like it was out of control. Like Amanda said, the algorithm has shifted, a lot of things have changed, and we're adapting to those changes. We have a pretty sizable following, could be larger, and we post pretty consistently, minimum of 4 to 7 times a week. And our audience on LinkedIn is really focused on people we want to work with, whether we're looking for partnerships, whether we're looking for governments, to work with people who are in our industry that we could share knowledge with. We've really decided to focus there. And our content on LinkedIn is very much leans more technical. We do a super segmented strategy on social media. Um, if you look at our account on LinkedIn and then you look at our account on Instagram, you're going to see very different content, and that is intentional. We're trying to kind of, LinkedIn is our nerdier side, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's where we still have some fun and show our people, but we really want to build that trust, get people to see us as a technical leader and use a little bit more professional language. We do lean into some acronyms. I know that is a no-go sometimes, but sometimes it makes you look smarter, I think. Um, so this is how we think about content. I'm sure there is a social media guru out there who has told you that content pillars are dead and you should not use them. I'm old and I still like them, so highly recommend. When we think about content pillars, we're really just helping organize all of the different competing interests that are coming in. And we want to kind of show across our channels that we're posting in these different areas, to make sure that things feel fresh for our audience and that we're also, showing the variety that EggPath has. We have content that is focused on action. So we want to show people what are we actually doing. We're not just talking about stuff. We're out there at conferences. We're doing the work in the field. This is different things that we're doing. This is like where we're bragging about the things that we're actually doing. We try to keep it away from that pure marketing copy, and really just focus on that action content. The center pillar is going to be that expert content, which Nadia has talked about a lot. For us, our experts are what makes our organization so special and so impactful. So we want to make sure that we're doing a lot of owned content created to highlight our experts, as well as sharing things that they post and making sure that we're amplifying them from the organizational channel. And then a lot of focus recently on media engagements, making sure that we're showing our experts are out in the media. They're being recognized as a source. And then finally, this pillar is the part that I think a lot of nonprofits miss and is something I even have to remind my team over and over again. Content that provides value. People want to come onto social media for something. They're choosing to spend their time. They're choosing to stop on your post. What are you giving them? With LinkedIn, I think one of the best things there is you don't necessarily have to play into this has to be entertaining or cute. People are usually there to learn and get something of value, that again can be a little nerdy. So for us, that looks like publications from our resource library. What are the things our team is working on? This may not get a huge reach every time. They may be a little niche, but these are the things that are really going to help our audience do their jobs better and want to work with us. Being up on current news for our industry. We just today posted in response to a new report from UNAIDS. Again, it's not going to be for everyone, but for people who are working in our field around HIV and global health, they're interested to see how we're translating and understanding that information, and we want to help them understand that. And really, across all of these content pillars, we're looking at different formats. We use photos, PDF carousels, lots of video, to even text-only posts, just trying to keep things fresh and engaging. But through it all of the content should really answer that question. Why should I work with EggPath? What are they doing that makes them interesting, worthwhile, whether it's giving them money, asking them to be a partner, asking them to attend an event, calling them as a media content. We want everything to kind of come back to that big picture question. So let's talk about experts. You've heard that organizational profiles are on the decline, expert or individual profiles are going up. How do we actually do that? Um, I will be honest, I wish I was like as great as Nadia and like had a whole plan, but that is just not our reality at EggPath. We all have to kind of figure out what is real life. These pictures are some of the experts that we've recently featured on our LinkedIn channel. They all have different backgrounds, they work in different countries, they're doing different things. And our perspective on highlighting experts is really encouraging them. We want to encourage them as much as possible without making this feel like it's a chore or another thing that they have to do. Um, I don't know what you all do, but some of my colleagues are actually saving children from HIV. So, like, it is hard to be like, this is important. You really need to spend time on this when, like, level of priorities are a little messy. So for us, we work with teams to kind of do suggested topic posts. If I know somebody's going to a conference ahead of time, I'm going to send them an email and say, hey, would you mind taking some pictures? We'd really like you to post about X, X, and X. We ask for them to comment on certain industry news. If we see a post come through that it's not a great fit for the organization to chime in, but it would be really great if one of our technical leads who works in this area chimed in, I'll flag it and say, hey, when you get a minute, can you take care of this? Um, and then we will suggest post topics. And I always caveat on everything that I send out. And this is just me and my personal style is I'm not your boss. I can't tell you what to do. This is not unlike Nadia, we don't have a requirement for thought leadership. But I think for our team in particular, where after the last couple of years, everybody feels a little overwhelmed, it makes this LinkedIn feel like a choice and something that they're a little more excited about rather than this crazy comms girl is yelling at them to always post, 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 and it feels scary. And that helps us when people do have questions, they feel comfortable coming to us and saying, hey, I want to do this, but would you take a look at this? Or, um, I've been thinking about posting, but I just don't know what to do. Or, for the love of God, I cannot figure out how to link something in or like mention this person. Can you please give me some help? We really found that having that more casual and like you have the choice approach works for our team and again has helped them post more often. So if we're doing all of this stuff on LinkedIn, your boss is probably asking you the same thing my boss is asking me, like, but what is it? What is it actually doing? We set a lot of dedicated KPIs, and that'll be different for you depending on what your business focus is, whether you're trying to grow in donations, get email signups, different things like that. We like to set KPIs kind of across or track results across these four different quadrants. One is production. Are we getting post out the door? And is it meeting our quality standards? And we have like, again, that goal of we post 4 to 7 times a week. We're making sure to comment so many times, and that just kind of keeps our team accountable. Engagement. Is our content, are people seeing our stuff and taking an action? So we really focus on improving comments, shares, and clicks month to month. We have like a goal quarterly on like how much we want to improve that. And that's just a priority for our team. That's how we're tracking to make sure that what we're putting out there is actually serving our audience. The other side of tracking results is a little more qualitative, and that's internal and external feedback. Internally, does our team see our presence on LinkedIn as being an added value to the organization? I think for comms, especially in this kind of chaotic moment, this is super important. We want to make sure that people feel like they're getting the support that they need. We want our executives to be mentioning in the meeting, like, oh, I saw that on LinkedIn, or I had somebody comment to me at a conference that they really liked our LinkedIn post on that. That's the kind of feedback that really helps us know that we're doing our job. And then externally, are we having people reach out to us for media or partnerships that are interested in us based on what they saw on LinkedIn? Are we getting in front of new audiences? Are there new opportunities coming through the door because of what we're doing on LinkedIn? That I think is also really important and helps us tell the story of why being on LinkedIn is valuable. And this isn't just, me having fun on the internet all day. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. And I'll toss it over to you, Juliet.
Thanks. No, that was so helpful, both of you. I think that it provided both sides of the equation, the individual thought leader and the organizational approach. So hopefully I am now going to take that and show you, or at least talk about how our clients are doing this in practice across a range of industries. So Amanda, if you want to go to the next slide. So I think the good news is that it can seem very daunting, but I venture to bet that a lot of the hard work is actually already in place. And this is something that we definitely see among our clients. It's just a matter of sort of making that work for you. And we do work with a lot of different kinds of clients. So, Nadia and Madeline each obviously work for two very different organizations. But what I can tell you is that what they're saying can be put into practice almost anywhere at different levels. So one thing I would say is, maybe 3 years ago, I would say, I'm not sure LinkedIn is a place to go to like fundraise or even maybe to do advocacy. I would say it is today. And your audience, regardless of what it is or who it is there. I promise you. Yes, even that one that you just thought of to question, yes, they are there, I promise. The other thing is that the content in many cases already exists. Madeline was talking about the reports and the briefs, and all of our clients have a treasure trove of content. It's just not necessarily being repurposed for LinkedIn, or maybe it's not being repurposed repeatedly for LinkedIn. So it just needs a little bit of a translation or a zhuzh, but it can be used, and in likelihood you already have it. So it's a matter of just sort of going through what is an asset really. Maybe that report we put out last month, there's still some life in it, and I would say there probably is. So that's another bit of good news. The other thing is, don't worry about convincing the skeptics or the people who are too busy and just won't focus on this. You don't need to push the boulder up the hill. There's momentum. You just have to find the people who are what I would consider sort of the low-hanging fruit options, and they are out there. And you will, as you go through this process, you will find them. And once they start working with you on LinkedIn or doing their own LinkedIn, you can use them as an example and a business case as to why other people might want to get involved. But don't worry about convincing the hardest to convince person up front. It helps to have leadership buy-in, as both Nadia and Madeline said, but if your CEO just isn't going to post on a regular basis, look elsewhere. The other thing is, you don't have to be like a super user. Quality and consistency matters a lot more than volume and spam. So yes, there's an algorithm aspect to this. Yes, there's like a word count in the number of comments that get the best algorithm. But, to start, you don't even necessarily need to take that into consideration. I think it's really much more, you all have incredibly smart things to say. And being thoughtful about what you post on LinkedIn and getting that muscle memory. If you can't do it 3 times a week, that's fine. You don't have to, but maybe do it once a week to build that muscle memory, but make that one like really thoughtful and something that's on your mind, because we all have things on our mind and perspectives on it, and it can be shared on LinkedIn to good effect. Amanda, you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to give 2 case studies here, examples. One is, okay, how are we using LinkedIn for advocacy? I'm going to use one of my clients, the American Academy of HIV Medicine. I'm not sure if Haley is on the call. I know she had registered, so we'll see. If you are, shout out Haley, who works at the Academy. But we are so last year was a tough year for HIV, as we all know, and or many of us know, but the American Academy of HIV Medicine has a very unique perspective because their members are clinicians on the front line. And clinicians, I think, have a unique credibility with decision makers. And so, how do we harness that to reach state level and federal policymakers and push back on harmful policies effectively? So we set out with, much like Madeline said, sort of what are the areas we want to own, or Nadia, maybe you said this, that what are the issues in the areas that we really want to kind of focus on? And we built out messaging around that. We have advocacy pillars for the organization, but then how do we get our members to take that up and start echoing that on LinkedIn, among other places? So we started with, once we had our messaging in place, building capacity, meeting with them on their existing regional and chapter meetings, just going to them and saying, this is what we want to do. This is the messaging. We'd love for you to be involved. And to that sort of low-hanging fruit message, a number of them raised their hands immediately. And so starting there, right? And so we went to them, to those individuals first up, and suggested we wanted to start creating context and nuance through long form LinkedIn content specifically. And so we went to each of them and started doing LinkedIn articles. Our goal is to do one a month. We immediately had sort of a pipeline of people who had raised their hands. I do interview them, so there's that, but that's just that you can either systematize that so that they don't need to be interviewed. I wanted to make it as easy and turnkey for them as conceivably possible, just to get the ball rolling. So I do interview them. I write up a LinkedIn article, just like you'd probably do an op-ed or a blog or anything else. But then I also give them a set of tools. So we post it on the Academy's channel, but we also give them easy, ready-made ways to then cross-post it. And one of the things I noticed, and actually just preparing for this webinar, is that you'll notice Chris Fox here, who is maybe a best case example. He not only was the author of, I believe, the first article we did, but also has been using our toolkits and reposting things repeatedly on his channel. So he's becoming our sort of LinkedIn, a LinkedIn champion, a LinkedIn thought leader and this is exactly what we wanted to see happen. In addition, obviously, each of those articles are based on what the clinicians are seeing on the front lines in terms of budget cuts at the state and federal level. So they're building a case to show their state level decision makers, but also that we can then take to the Hill to say, this is the impact this is having. These are the real world consequences. So we're building up these advocacy materials as well. And also building the case on LinkedIn for why these funding cuts are so harmful. So that's sort of the long form. We're also creating a lot of short form content built around our advocacy efforts. So that looks like quarterly toolkits with ready-made content that people can pick and choose from. And it's all built around those pillars that I mentioned before, the advocacy pillars. So we're getting it in their hands. They can use it whenever. They don't have to use it immediately. There's a lot to choose from. So that is there for them, and we're getting it to them regularly. So even if they forget about it right after I send them Q1, Q2 is right around the corner. Um, and then as things come up, for example, right now there are 20 states that are considering um, uh, cuts to HIV prescription medication. We're fighting back against that. And so when there's an urgent issue, we're also getting toolkits out to them around that so that they can then use it for their own advocacy. So that's the Academy. But you can also use LinkedIn for other reasons like driving membership growth. So, Global Health Council last year was very focused on pushing back, once again, tough year in global health. Um, uh, they were the lead plaintiff in one of the first lawsuits, if not the first lawsuit, against the Trump administration as they sought to dismantle USAID. So they were very focused on that last year. This year, they're turning their attention to increasing their strength through numbers, and that is through membership. So we've pivoted in our content strategy to focus almost, centrally, exclusively on highlighting members. To really show like there's a benefit to there's collective strength here. Look at what our members are doing. There's a benefit to being a part of this community, and we want to amplify and platform what you're doing. So we are doing a lot of sharing and amplifying of member work, very intentionally monitoring it, liking, engaging, but also reconstituting it and sharing it through Global Health Council's LinkedIn channel. And also centering a lot of our original content, any content that GHC is creating on its own around membership, the benefits of membership, and engaging with members. So we have toolkits that we're getting out to board members in particular, because they should be our ambassadors for membership. And we know board members, are incredibly busy. I mean, who among us is not busy, but they have multiple jobs, being a board member being one of them. And if I were to get them the same kind of toolkit that I did for the Academy, it would be overwhelming. They don't want 10 options, it's too much. And they don't want it quarterly because they will likely miss it in their email. So we instead, on a monthly basis, are doing very quick, through sending it through GHC's president and CEO, very quick uh, options for posts with visual assets and copy already written. And they are then, have only 3 choices. They can pick one and send it out right then and there. And if they miss a month, hopefully they'll get it the next month. And we've noticed this has really worked. Again, very few options, very targeted on a much more frequent basis, has worked. We see these are some of board member examples. They are posting pretty regularly, much more. They weren't posting before. They just weren't engaged on LinkedIn like that, and now they are. So, do I hope that it gets to be even more engaged? Absolutely, but we're seeing the efforts becoming fruitful even already. And then the other thing we did was, and Nadia mentioned this too, and I think we actually took Nadia's counsel on this one, but we have an email that goes to, about 10,000 or more individuals, but we, translated that for LinkedIn, and almost immediately got 3,000 more subscribers. And the hope is that a lot of those people will become future members as well. So reaching just a lot more people. Obviously, you want to own the contacts, excuse me, which is why email is nice, but this way we're reaching a lot more people. We don't own those emails, LinkedIn owns them, but we are reaching a lot more people. And hopefully, again, some of those people will turn into members. And all of these things are very low lift. The newsletter takes an extra, maybe it took an hour the first time we did it, but now, and by we, I mean Amanda, and now it takes, a half an hour, 10, hopefully we'll cut that time down even more. In addition, in terms of repurposing the content for board members, we're already creating that content. So it's really just setting the president and CEO of GHC up to send that email, selecting the three sort of best board member options and sending those out. So that's very, very low lift for pretty feasible, pretty substantial return on investment. I think that's my spiel. Yeah. So we do have a few minutes left. I really appreciate you guys all hanging in there because I know you have a lot of other things to do, but I'd love to open it up for questions and see if what you guys think. I mean, maybe oh, sorry, go ahead, Madeline. I saw you come off of mute.
I was gonna say, while we're waiting on everybody to type in their questions, because I know everyone's furiously typing, I would love to hear from Nadia. When did you all decide, like, first decide to focus on like building up your thought leaders? Like, what was there an event that you happened, or like a aha moment that you decided this was worth investing in?
I would say around October of last year when we were doing our comms planning process. This is something that also in my previous role at PSI, we were starting to think about and worked on to some extent, particularly around events and doing communications, messaging, training around events. That's what we were trying to do. And so it kind of continued in this organization. And then when we started seeing the initial results, when our senior management was kind of creating the metrics for performance evaluation as well, they included that as a criteria, which kind of gave us a big boost. Yeah. So end of last year, beginning of this year is when that happened.
Oh, and Amanda, if you want, you can take us off of the shared screen. So I see, Brianna, your question, LinkedIn burnout. Yeah, I mean burnout in general. Um, yeah, I think I don't know, Nadia, if you have any thoughts on that. I mean, that's real. I think a couple things like scheduling posts ahead of time to give yourself a break. Um, Scheduling time in and capping that time, 5 minutes on a Monday, and then, um, then that's that. Uh, I mean, this is almost more sort of like behavioral health. I think right now we are just living in a moment of extreme burnout in general. Um, and I get the losing momentum. I don't know if you have to build the the uh the audience is still there. I mean, they're not unfollowing you, so you're always going to be able to rebuild that back up. But I would say scheduling might be a good way. Like if you just set up a schedule where you've got one post is going to come out a week, and then you can like kind of take a break from it. That might be helpful. But Nadia and Madeline, I don't know if you have other thoughts on that.
One big motivator that we have seen within our organization is when periodically, and this is only once a quarter or so that we share, if when we call out a few colleagues and share like the successes. So for instance, if somebody's posted during a conference and got a lot of traction, or yeah, I just shared the impact that our three organizational leaders had in terms of reach. So sharing some of those numbers out during team meetings is usually a big motivator. But you're right. I mean, people don't have the time to be on LinkedIn constantly, just making it as lowering the barrier as much as possible. And as Madeline was also pointing out, doing as much of the legwork as possible for them so that they can repurpose an existing content or just add an angle, and you can even suggest those things. So doing as much of that from the comms team as possible is something that helps.
Right, and I know, Brianna, because I know you, I know that you don't have a comms team. So I think for individual organizations, very small organizations with sort of no real team, and Michelle, I think this gets to your question as well. I do think if you can, Brianna, enlisting others that are maybe not within your organization, but can serve as, similarly as ambassadors, just to share the load a little bit. Others who are invested in it, I think you do have, I'm not sure, but I think you have a board, think maybe outside the box, members, board members, others where it doesn't always have to be you posting around your issues. So that might be one thing that can help. And then Michelle, kind of going into your, I see you, I validate you. And I know that sort of repurposing content it can be a heavy lift sometimes. I would say, if you can't do the video, then don't, I mean, do, especially initially, do what you can, and don't worry about the rest. I mean, as Madeline was saying, video these days I think is when it's organic, authentic, and kind of rough around the edges, that's great. But if that's not something that's really, even if that's not reasonable, then don't worry about it. There's other things you can do. I don't know, Madeline and Nadia, if you have other, and Amanda, if you have other.
Yeah, I would just echo what Juliet said. I think one of the nice things about LinkedIn compared to a lot of other social sites right now is the barrier to entry is a lot easier. You don't have to have videos like on TikTok every time you post. You don't have to have, long form to fill a Substack. You don't have to have great photos and carousels on Instagram. You can really just focus on text with occasional photos and still get a fair amount of growth. I would say stick with that. And then if you think you want to get into video, pick up something in the future that you think, okay, like this would be a good thing. It's not a signature campaign, but maybe it's a awareness day that we want to try to do or something. Like if it doesn't work, if it ends up being too hard, if I hate the way I look on camera, like all of those things, I can scrap it and it's not going to be the end of the world, but like I want to try that. And that's a good way to like dip into a new content thing. And if it's not worth the time, it's not worth the time. I think a lot of times with part-time comms people, you're kind of looking at that return on investment. Is me spending 8 hours staring at Canva, moving a logo back and forth helpful
Yes.
and going to get us more views? Probably not. So like, let's just skip it.
Been there, done that on Canva.
Only a few times. I'll add on to that just a little bit. I think that with video in particular, I think that's, a space where, staff engagement and knowing the strengths, especially of various staff members, especially leaders in your organization, can make a big difference. For instance, we've worked with executives who are very comfortable on camera, are very, they've been in front of the media already anyway. And even if it's, just supporting them and giving them talking points and, written content, right? So it could be as simple as, working with a CEO or another leader in the organization who might be more comfortable taking, a person first video and starting there, and then the organization can always promote what they're posting about and everybody benefits there, which is really helpful. And then going back really quickly to Brianna's question, I think Nadia, I think it was mentioned, you can start building up as an individual, right? As a professional, you can really start building up your presence with just 15 minutes a week, which is something I tell myself all the time, just 15 minutes, come on. And this is more speaking to the individual than to the organization, right? Because you can feel burnout in both spaces, I think. But it's okay sometimes to set a maximum too, as a person, right? Like even on the weeks when I'm really feeling, ready to post on my personal LinkedIn, my personal profiles and like build up that social sales index. You have to, sometimes you have to be mindful of your reserve and how much you have and the fact that you'd like to maintain it, over the course of time. So maybe setting a cap for yourself, at 15, 30 minutes could help as well.
With videos, I wanted to add two things. One is we put our videos in two buckets. One is the more higher production value videos, if you will, where we actually need to have our big camera and lights and all of that. So we like usually shooting those videos in batches to make our life easier. So around staff retreats or big conferences, we will shoot those videos in batches, maybe do 8, 10 videos. So we are sitting on that and rolling it out over 6 months, 8 months, a year, just so we have a reserve. But more and more, what we are doing is just with our cell phones, especially around conferences, we're doing very quick DIY style videos. So if our colleague is on a panel, we might just record it on our phone, take a 15-second or 30-second snippet out of it, and they're writing a 2 to 3 sentence post, and we'll just give them you edit it using iMovie or CapCut on our phone. So something really low lift. Another thing is we might go around during a conference and ask our colleagues, what is one thing that you learned at the conference that was interesting for you? And we might weave 2 or 3 of those together and create a video same day. So those are the kind of low lift videos that we have been trying out. And it's because it's more timely, it's getting a lot more engagement. But the other kind of videos, of course, take a lot more planning. We add it to the editorial calendar, and it's a much longer runway.
All right, we are 4 minutes over, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. But thank you so much to the panelists. You guys, I learned so much from you, and I really appreciate it. As a small team, we love to brainstorm with others in the field who to learn every day. So thank you. Thank you to those of you who attended and for staying on for the whole time. If you have questions, I know this was just a little snippet, and there's a lot more to say. So if you have questions, please reach out. I'm happy to put you in touch with Madeline or Nadia. I'm happy to try and answer. I think we're all in this together. So good luck, and we will see you on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Yeah.